Coming up from Fort Worth, Texas, AOPA members meet the new president, something really big at Airport Fest, the watch that everybody is watching, and meet some summit newbies. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment. Well, howdy, and welcome to Texas. We're coming to you from the AOPA Aviation Summit in Fort Worth, and this is the first of 3 special AOPA Live This Week shows. I'm Tom Haynes. Thanks for joining us. Putting on the AOPA Summit is, of course, no small undertaking. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Thousands of pilots have made their way here to look, learn, and even dream a little. And as Paul Moses tells us, no one knows how to do big better than the folks here in Fort Worth. Company name is what?
Grab your cowboy hat and bring your baby, be it your spouse or your airplane. Whatever spurs you into action. For the folks who've been looking forward to it, the AOPA Summit is a welcome chance to pamper their passion. Bill, you can call him Froggy, Warden, is 80 years old. He's been flying since he was 14, but this marks another first.
So, you've never been to the summit before?
Never before, but I have always wanted to, because I've seen them on TV, I've seen them in the magazines, on the internet, you know, and people having so much fun. I just had to come to this one. It especially since it's here in my hometown.
For the folks who've been preparing for the summit, Texas style, this is the culmination of nearly a year's worth of work. Just ask Tony Menching, who I guess you could say is the official plane wrangler.
We've got almost 1,500 attendee aircraft flying in. It's the highest number we've had for a long time. The great thing about Texas is there's no geographical limitation for people to fly in. We don't have mountains on one side or ocean on the other. You can fly in from all directions, and so I think members are going to be really happy about the location.
They've dressed up the Debonair, just one of the more than 70 aircraft on static display out at this year's Airport Fest.
As you would expect in Texas, be it at the convention center or out here at Meacham Airport, this show is big. No, let me be clear. It's big. No, I mean big.
Big displays downtown. Over 400 exhibitors showing off the latest gadgets and gear that pilots would love to lay claim to. And events?
We're hosting a big event Friday night down at the Cowtown Coliseum. We're having a big barbecue with all of our members coming out, and then we're going to move over to the Stockyard Championship Rodeo, where everybody will get to go in and enjoy an authentic rodeo that they may not traditionally get to see where they're from.
Now, when you're talking about big, how big is big?
Huge!
So the volunteers are good to go and ready to enjoy what is sure to be one of the best aviation events ever to hit these here parts, and that's a big show. Or, as Ernie Beck put it,
One more time, how's that? The really big shoe.
Paul Moses, AOPA Live.
They really need a big ramp out at Airport Fest this year. Not only are there dozens of small aircraft on display out at the airport, but 2 rare birds have landed as well. The Commemorative Air Force, which is headquartered here in Texas, has brought in Fifi and Diamond Lil. Fifi is the only B-29 still flying. Diamond Lil, a B-24, is also one of the few still airworthy. It's restored to tip-top condition by CAF volunteers.
We have squadrons all over the U.S. There's something like 180 aircraft that are based throughout the U.S. Our particular squadron has 4 aircraft presently, B-29, B-24, a C-45, which we have over here, and a T-6. And we take those out on tour along with some other aircraft. And bring World War II and the crew missions that people did out to the public, out to a new generation.
To help offset the huge restoration costs and fuel bills, the CAF offers rides in its Warbirds. How much? $1,000 if you want to fly in the cockpit. A few hundred less if you want to ride in the back. The sweepstakes airplane Debonair is in place out at Meacham Field, and as always, many hopeful winners-to-be are stopping by the booth to check it out. Their future ride is the Beech 35B. It's well into its makeover. We have featured a lot of the exterior upgrades in the months gone by. This stop in Fort Worth, it's the first since it's received its new interior at AirMod in Cincinnati. Its tip tanks give it exceptional range, and Tom Horn got to experience the new interior in his 5-hour flight to Fort Worth. Says it's sweet.
This burns 13 gallons an hour. You get about 148 knots true. And it was straight line. I filed IFR, couldn't believe it. They gave me direct from Cincinnati. And it was the greatest flight. And with the new seats, I could actually withstand it. Before, we had an 8-hour, 9-hour airplane with 45-minute seats.
Right.
But now you can actually get along in class.
Tom says members will be impressed with the latest improvements, but you'll have to wait just a little bit longer. The Debonair won't be delivered to its new owner until next year. But this year, AOPA has a new president, and Summit is the first opportunity for many members to take measure of the new guy in the left seat. Mark Baker told members of his goals and dreams for their association at the keynote session on Thursday morning. Fundamentally, the goals are the same as they were 75 years ago when 5 Philadelphia aviators founded the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association.
Our goal and vision hasn't changed. Back in 1939, the world was going to war. It looked like GA might disappear forever. We still face threats, but there are a lot more than 5 of us today, and we won't let general aviation disappear. Another area where I think we can make a real difference is at our airports. I fell in love with flying at the airport, and I bet many of you did too. I was one of those airport kids. I used to ride my bike down to the airport and watch planes take off and land. And I talked to the pilots, bummed rides whenever I could. That experience just isn't available as it should be. Airports shouldn't look like prison camps. We respect the need for security, but airports only thrive when people can use them. Communities need access. This is how our neighbors experience the value of airports and how future pilots are exposed to general aviation. Watching planes take off and land is just as cool as it was when I was a kid. I can't imagine airports wanting to have picnic tables, shelters, grills, viewing areas, playgrounds. Even non-pilots can experience the magic of an aviation at the airport.
You can see more of Mark's keynote and hear his answers to some of your questions on AOPAlive.org. As you just heard, Mark intends to put a new emphasis on airports, so it's particularly fitting that the winners of this year's AOPA Sharpless Award are 2 airport advocates who are working to make Grand Junction Airport in Colorado a friendlier place.
Welcome to the general aviation area of the Grand Junction Regional Airport in Grand Junction, Colorado. What you're looking at is a $5 million structure that was sold to the community and to the general aviation community as a wildlife control fence. Of course, it's not a wildlife control fence. What it is an over-the-top security fence.
We've lost some businesses that were in this area that we're in right now, the Southeast General Aviation area. We call it the Charlie 1 Alpha area of the airport. Some piston engine maintenance capability and an avionics shop have all closed since that time. And there's just generally a lot lower level of activity out here.
We decided that when you confront something like this, you have to be organized. You have to get involved. This kind of damage is inflicted on general aviation. Fixing it isn't fast and it isn't easy. The first step, of course, is simply to remove these gates and to let access be restored. After that, we need to work on creating an environment that's not just neutral, but is friendly to general aviation.
For young people with maybe some interest in math and science, they discover aviation. The more they learn about it, the more they realize, hopefully, that this wonderful infrastructure that we have in the United States doesn't exist around the rest of the world. It's something we need to work hard to keep, preserve, and advance.
We're very gratified that we now seem to be on a path to have these gates removed and to have an acceptable security solution for Grand Junction that doesn't harm the aviation community. We have an opportunity not simply to defend it locally here in Grand Junction, but to learn a lesson that we can apply elsewhere.
You know, a mom or dad or a grandma or grandpa in this community could be able to come to the airport on a Saturday and have some reasonable expectation that son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter that they've brought out to look at airplanes is going to have a chance to see airplanes, maybe even mingle with some pilots, hopefully light a little fire inside of them.
The access that we had to legal services and AOPA's expertise, AOPA weighing in with their letterhead on the issues that impact Grand Junction was critical to our success, and we're very grateful.
And AOPA members attending this morning's keynote session had the distinct pleasure of meeting the first recipient of the AOPA Able Flight Scholarship.
I always thought that airplanes were cool. My grandfather was a pilot, my uncle was a pilot. I just really enjoyed airplanes. I remember the day that I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. I was 11 years old. My family was on a vacation up in the Washington, D.C. area. And we just happened to stop by the yard to go see what the Naval Academy looked like. I decided to go to the Naval Academy to fulfill really a boyhood dream. And in the spring of my senior year, this was 2005, the insurgency was really coming to a head in Iraq at that time. And I really wanted to be a part of that. I wanted the opportunity to lead Marines on the ground and sort of stretch myself in that call to leadership. As soon as the bomb went off, most of the guys in patrol were knocked out, knocked unconscious. And as they began to come to, the corpsman realized, he went around and assessed everybody and immediately realized that I was the one who was most grievously injured. I had suffered the largest impact of the bomb. I've always had a large faith component in my life, and I feel very strongly that my survival is nothing short of a divine, sort of intervention in my life. I mean, my dad, who's a surgeon, tells me, he's like, Andrew, I cannot explain how you made it. But the numbers don't add up. Like, it doesn't make sense how you're even here. I spent about 18 months in the hospital, and around the time that I left the hospital, I met a young gentleman who had himself was maybe a year or two ahead of me in terms of being injured and recovering and moving on with his life. And he had just finished this flight training program that he's like, Andrew, you got to check this out. It's called Able Flight. They teach you how to fly a light sport aircraft. And I said, well, what's that? And he said, it's a really small airplane, but it's still a lot of fun. Went to Purdue for 6 weeks of training and just had an absolutely great time. The facilities there are wonderful. Bernie Woolley and the rest of the team there at Purdue have made it as easy as possible for the Able Flight students to come in.
Lieutenant Andrew Kynard is a wonderful example of what we do at Able Flight. We have allotted about 25 to 30% of our scholarships for wounded veterans. He's a Naval Academy graduate 2005, had an opportunity to become a Marine aviator, passed on that to lead troops in Iraq, and then lost both legs in an IED explosion. And we're also very proud that Andrew is our first AOPA Able Flight Scholarship winner, based on AOPA's support of 3 continuous years of a full scholarship.
This is 8 Sierra Alpha. Sierra 448, Sierra Alpha lofty ground, runway 5, taxi via Bravo, hold short, runway 28. Taxi runway 5 via Bravo, hold short, 28, 8 Sierra Alpha.
I've really found a welcoming community here within the general aviation community. Just a very, very welcoming group of individuals. People come from all walks of life, and I've really fallen in love with it.
Whoa, that feels different.
Flying to me is the ultimate expression of freedom. I spend all day in my wheelchair encountering obstacles like stairs and curbs and speed bumps and things like that are a physical obstacle to me. But up in the air, there's nothing that it gets in my way. I can go anywhere I want to.
All right, Sierra Alpha, this is going to be a full stop.
All right, Sierra Alpha, turn left, Bravo 3, and contact ground point 9er. Good job.
To me, just that sense of freedom, unfettered freedom, really, being in a wheelchair is what it's all about to me. And so I'm so grateful to Able Flight for giving me the opportunity to learn how to fly, and I'm so thankful that the general aviation community makes it so easy. I'm sort of both completing a dream and participating in something that tells me, deep down inside, I can do anything I want to.
Pinning on is AOPA wings.
I can't begin to tell you how great it feels to be here this morning amongst a whole group of new friends in my life. During that video, I was watching it from back behind the stage, and remembered that while I was flying out to Frederick at the AOPA headquarters for its filming, I was taking off from a small airport just to the east of Washington, D.C., and flew through Washington. On that trip, I flew right over my alma mater, the Naval Academy. And I couldn't help but think how serendipitous that moment was. When I looked down, I saw all the midshipmen scurrying around about their day as they do every day, always busy with something. And never, it just came into my mind that I never thought that I would sort of be in this position 7 years later, almost to the day this month, of flying an airplane over the Naval Academy, having gone through all that I've been through. Just had my 79th surgery on Friday. And, it's been quite a journey, but one that I wouldn't trade for anything, one that I cherish, the experiences, the friends that I've made, and the friends really that I'm looking forward to making here among AOPA and among the general aviation community. I'm just so excited, and thank you so much for having me here this morning. Thank you.
Andrew certainly is an impressive young man. Really honored to meet him. And there was another summit here in Fort Worth. We called it the Summit Before the Summit, and it was a chance for flight training professionals to exchange ideas and examine ways to improve the industry. Sean Moody reports.
The day before AOPA's annual gathering officially kicked off, aviation innovators from across the country gathered to exchange thoughts.
I told the people in this room earlier in the day that I believe they are in the vanguard of the change that is taking place in aviation. In this room today, we have some of the best and the brightest minds, some of the highest achieving flight schools, the highest achieving flight instructors. So what we're trying to create today was that special energy, that spark that's going to keep us all motivated and excited, share the good ideas, and be the lightning in the bottle that moves aviation forward.
A top priority at this year's AOPA Summit, how to get more people who are interested in flying into the air.
A lot of airports don't seem to foster that welcoming environment, and the ones that do always seem to be really successful.
Make it so that not only...
In roundtable discussions, instructors and flight school operators talked about how they can keep students and a strategy to prevent dropouts.
I think the best part is to bring the family for certain events, like make annual barbecues like our flight school does. And I encourage my students to bring their friends or parents or whoever they're really close to the family for their solo flights, first solo flights, so they share that enthusiasm along with them.
If their family member or best friend or whatever is willing, have them ride along in the back seat, or really any lesson where you're not doing slow flight and stalls. Just if you have somebody who's interested in it, bring them along. Why not?
America's top aviation minds are here in Fort Worth. Everyone from flight school owners to manufacturing executives to internet startups like Rod Rakett, whose new company, Open Airplane, aims to make renting an airplane as easy as renting a car.
Now, the universal checkout does three things. One, it resets the clock on your flight review. Two, it gets you up to a 10% discount on your renter's insurance. And three, it now gives you access to the same make, model aircraft all around the country.
There's a sense of optimism about the future of general aviation here in Fort Worth.
It's refreshing to know that there are still in this industry a lot of good, fresh ideas and a lot of positive energy, I think is the big takeaway.
And when AOPA's new president, Mark Baker, introduced himself to this group, he emphasized why flight training is critical to the future of general aviation.
One thing that I've done, I spent a lot of time with instructors because I've checked out in a lot of different airplanes and taken it very seriously about getting to know an airplane and know it pretty well before you take your first passenger. So respect to what you do in terms of how you think about putting somebody safely in the air.
And Mark Baker honored the best flight schools and flight instructors from across America. San Carlos Flight Center in the Bay Area won this year's award for Best Flight School. Connor Dancy of Aviation Adventures in Virginia is this year's Best Flight Instructor. And Aviation Adventures owner Bob Hepp, who owns 3 flight schools in Virginia, takes this year's President's Choice Award.
It was a tremendous surprise, first of all. I never saw that one coming. But I'm very, very thankful to AOPA and the people, Adam Smith and his group at the Center to Advance Pilot Community. And they're just a great bunch of people doing great things, and I'm very, very privileged to help them in whatever way that we can.
Sean Moody, AOPA Live.
When we come back to the AOPA Aviation Summit here in Fort Worth,
this is like going to Toys R Us.
And the Watch to Watch. Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week, coming to you from the AOPA Aviation Summit in Fort Worth, Texas. Well, here's the latest pilot toy that's creating quite a buzz in the exhibit hall. Garmin has announced a new GPS-enabled watch that puts flight planning right on your wrist. Oddly enough, the company calls it the D2 Pilot Watch. It has a WAAS GPS as well as a worldwide airport database built right in. This is real Dick Tracy stuff, folks. Pilots can import flight plans from the Garmin Pilot iPad app and see their progress on this cool moving map display.
You have the ability to pan and zoom, but it's a basic moving map which will show you your current position, your destination, and of course your course line, and then it at least gives you some type of detail when it comes to the borders of states, so that way you have some situational awareness.
The watch costs $449, and it also features a remote control that lets you start and stop recording on a Garmin Verb action camera. The D2 watch is available for pre-order now and ships next month, just in time for my holiday present. Hilton Software today announced its WingX Pro iPad app will work with Dynon Avionics' new D2 Pocket Panel. The D2 is a separate unit and uses a Wi-Fi connection to stream AHRS information to the iPad. It allows pilots to see their attitude within a synthetic vision view. The D2 also works with the Bendix King My Wingman app, the iHUD Remote app, and Air Navigation Pro app, as well as AOPA's own FlyQ app. And there's a lot more new stuff appearing here in the exhibit hall. It's all right behind me and out at Airport Fest. We'll be reporting on more of the cool things for pilots in our shows on Friday and Saturday. Well, turning now to the wacky world of Washington. Last week, we wondered what the heck CBP was up to now. This week, Congressman Sam Graves is wondering the same thing. You'll remember that Graves sent Customs and Border Protection a letter asking for an Inspector General's investigation of general aviation stops and searches. And then, CBP put out a notice that it plans to change its record-keeping system.
We got a letter back now that's basically stating that what they want to do is create a new system of records and then exempt that from the Privacy Act.
Graves says that's not right.
It sounds like they're hiding something or something's going on, and we want to know what's going on before they go start removing things from the public eye. So this is just another frustrating aspect of government is what it is, and it's overreaching by the federal government.
Graves sent this letter to CBP demanding that they first allow the department's Inspector General to complete an investigation into stops and searches of general aviation aircraft. Meanwhile, last Thursday, AOPA President Mark Baker testified before the House Small Business Committee. He appeared with representatives from most of the other general aviation organizations. Baker reminded the committee that GAA is small business. Some 65% of all GAA flights are for business and public service, but the government isn't helping this important part of the economy.
I feel very strongly that this is an overregulated industry. Clearly, if you look at the amount of regulation for the activity that goes on, all different aspects, has slowed down general aviation, and it's a very fragile industry right now, extraordinarily fragile. And with user fees, which, thanks to all of you, has been held in abeyance at this point in time, continue to come up as a topic of our members, and making sure that this industry is protected from fees that would restrict this access and flying that is very important to growing businesses.
But it wasn't all work for Mark last week. Saturday, he and a small group of AOPA staffers attended the Lake Gaston Seaplane Splash-In in Virginia. This was the first of what they hope will be an annual event, and for Baker, it was another opportunity to get out and meet pilots where they fly. And finally, shifting back to Fort Worth, many people are at AOPA Aviation Summit for the first time. We caught up with some of them as they arrived at the first summit in the central part of the country.
I've been wanting to come to the AOPA Summit ever since I started flying, but it's always been kind of far away.
Coming to the summit has always been high on my list. This summit being in Texas, I'm up here.
And so we decided, this is in Dallas, Fort Worth, let's go down.
It's close to home, it was real easy.
Well, we flew Cirrus up from Austin, came primarily for the seminars. They have a number of excellent speakers.
Today I'm looking forward to going to several of the seminars on all the iPad tricks of the trade.
Go to the vendors' booths and just see what they have to offer.
This is like going to Toys R Us.
We looked out here and saw all the airplanes and we said, we just absolutely love airplanes. It's just about the love of flying. It's really what it's about. It's the passion and the love of aviation.
And so I think the summit just is the whole package.
It's in my backyard, and this is like awesome, being able to enjoy AOPA Summit.
It's just like being at home with friends and family. I mean, we all have something in common. We all love aviation. We love to fly, and it's just real easy to spark up conversations with strangers and start building new relationships.
And that's a wrap for our first day at the AOPA Aviation Summit in Fort Worth. Please join us again tomorrow for more Texas-sized doings. Until then, I'm Tom Haynes, and I'm going to hit the exhibit floor.